talking about the higher self, fundamentals of UNICULT. Am I clinically insane? Yes, definitely. I think 9 out of 10 doctors would agree, no doubt. But we're not asking doctors, are we? We're on Instagram Live, we're on YouTube, we are on TikTok. We're not at a doctor's office. So we get to do whatever we want on the internet. And in UNICULT, we get to do whatever we want so long as we are not harming anyone. Starseeds definitely believe in gaming because this whole world is a game. And I think most Starseeds would agree. So we're going to be talking about the higher self. This is on page 111. Very exciting, 111. What is the higher self? The higher self is a conception of divinity that relates closely to you. It's a conception of divinity that is personal. And the reason why it's so important to have a connection to divinity that is personal is because we are part of God, and if you part of Uni, part of the system as a whole, and if you don't integrate yourself, your personal experience with something higher, happy. We're going to have a TV studio church someday. If you don't integrate something higher into your own personal experience of divinity, then you're not going to be connected to it as much. When we look at the levels of reality in UNICULT, we've got personal reality, which we really glorify as the most important reality because that is the way that you are interfacing with the world. That is the way that you are connecting to everything that's happening. You're connecting to every external thing, every internal thing. You are connecting to the entire world, all of the physical reality, social reality. Everything has to come through the filter of our own personal realities. So how can we... Happy, please. I'm trying to do a sermon. Happy. Thank you. Happy. Hang on. Stop barking, please. No. Thank you. All right. Here we go. If you filter the entirety of reality through your personal reality, what good is divinity if you don't relate to it? What good is anything if you don't process it in a way that is beneficial to your soul? The higher self is a concept of divinity that is the most personal. When we talk about power, we talk about true power, and we talk about the power that each of us have to change the world, which is one of the reasons why UNICULT is what it is because we are doing our best to change the world. We're trying to change the world. We're trying to change ourselves. We're trying to create a reality that is living in near constant joy through radical self-love. How can we live in near constant joy? How can we find radical love if we don't process it through our own personal realities? The aspect of divinity that is personal to you is unique. It is a unique connection, and nobody else can have that same connection that you have. Even two people who are married, who have spent 50 years together, and they believe in the same God, and they share much of the same paradigm, each of those people are going to have a different relationship to their God, to the divine. It is that unique relationship that UNICULT specifically glorifies and UNICULT specifically focuses on so that we can enrich ourselves and attach ourselves to our highest conception of reality. This is an extremely logical sermon today, talking about the higher self. I see you, Dara. I'm going to get you in a second after the sermon. When we talk about power and we talk about our ability to change the world, we realize that the most concentrated form of power that we have is in our own personal reality. It is in our own consciousness. It is easy. It is more easy for you to change a thought than it is for you to do anything else. For you to change a thought is much simpler than it is to clean a house, for instance. Your most concentrated power, the place where you have the most power, is in your own mind, in your own thoughts. From there, it extends to your body. It is more easy for you to lift your hand than it is to change the entirety of your town. Okay, so we've got your own thoughts, we've got your body, we've got your own house, that's easy to control, and then we've got your external surroundings that extends out to your relationships. You can't control other people, of course, but you can control your relationships and how you interact with people, and the amount of love that you give, and doing your 50% harmony to the relationship. As we look at our concentration of power and we realize that the majority of it is in our own consciousness and our own paradigm and how we see the world, the more easy it is to understand that our connection with divinity is more important than we ever may have realized before. Because as we go around our life and we expect reality to be a certain way, we create that reality. Self-fulfilling prophecy and psychology shows this, quantum physics shows this. We could go on and on about all the different things that have proven the fact that as we believe something, that belief becomes real. As we expect reality to be a certain way, it ends up manifesting in our reality in a certain way. This is all just background for you to understand why it's so important to forge a complex relationship, a complex personal relationship with the divine. When I talk about the divine and I say the spirit of uni, or I say God, or I say your higher self, or I talk about aliens, or I talk about angels, these are all stories that we tell ourselves from our limited viewpoint of how to relate to the truth of reality, which is harmony and divinity. And as we conceptualize of divinity in complex, fractionalized ways that make sense to us as a unique splitting off of that consciousness, we actually create a more complex divinity. We actually create a more complex spirit of uni. We actually create a more complex God by believing in the divinity, in the divine, from a personal place, from a place of personal understanding. So the belief in the higher self is an entirely practical application of self-fulfillment, of self-growth, and of creating a better life for yourself in this moment. Maybe you think, oh, I don't even believe that anything happens after this life. I think this is all chaos. I don't even believe that the universe is harmonious. Okay, let's start here. The universe has to be harmonious, otherwise we wouldn't exist. For true chaos to reign means life cannot exist. Most aliens believe in God. Yeah, at least all aliens believe in God to some degree. Most. Okay, so this is the most practical thing that we can believe. Our higher selves is our conception of the highest sense of reality, and it is practical because it makes our life better. Why does it make our life better? Because if we're walking around in a certain vibration, that is a certain level of energy that is, depressed or anxious or happy and fulfilled, the energy that you cultivate inside your own body, first of all, is the most important thing that you experience in your life. That's your energy that you are creating, that you have to live in. And then from there, it radiates out to other people. And it radiates out into your life, and it actually creates manifestation for the things that you want to see. So as you look at your own vibration and you are able to analyze, is this vibration detrimental to me or is it beneficial? And how can I maximize the beneficial energy? You will logically see that by conceptualizing of the highest potential reality, you are logically, fundamentally benefiting yourself. That's just true. And I'm not saying to ignore the darker side of reality. I'm not saying to not do your shadow work and all of that. We talk about those things a lot. The concept of the higher self is your personal connection to the highest reality that can exist. It is the ability to integrate higher conceptions of reality into your body, into your consciousness, and into your life. The amount of time and energy and focus that you spend thinking of something higher, especially a personalized relationship to something higher, the more you will be manifesting that highest reality, the most beneficial reality, into your mind, body, and life. What is the difference between God, the spirit of uni, and your higher self? Again, these are just fractionalized conceptual limitations of the divine. They are stories that we tell ourselves about the mysteries of the universe that our little tiny human peewee brains trapped in time, trapped on earth, can comprehend. As we tell ourselves complex stories that excite our spirits, that make us feel good and safe, we then are creating a closer connection to the limitless expansion of divinity that exists. I used to think like, wow, how can I be a Christian and believe in like a white sky daddy God? Because I did for a long time, as a kid. And then as I grew up and I was in high school, I was like, oh yeah, that is a weird story. Why am I believing this weird story? Even though it was giving me a lot of nourishment and a lot of faith and a lot of comfort, and I had had a very hard childhood and my faith actually nourished me. But when I started analyzing the story that I was telling myself, I realized how specific it was to my conception of divinity and to my conception of, a parent or something like that. And I actually belittled myself for that. And I thought, well, I'm just telling myself a made-up story. And this made-up story about God being a white man in the sky who loves me unconditionally is a silly story because it's obviously not true, because that is such a limited view of divinity. So I lost my faith and I became an atheist because I wanted to believe in something that was logical, and I didn't feel like Christianity was logical. I didn't feel like the story that I believed about God was logical. Now that I'm a Unicultist and I've gone through this amazing journey of letting go of all of my preconceptions of reality and, killing my ego and finding that I have nothing here in this reality, it's not even real, and that I'm the only thing that's, creating all of this from my own consciousness, and that we're all doing that simultaneously, then I have come to realize that those comforts, those stories that we tell ourselves about divinity in a way that helps us relate to divinity are our in. They're our in to divinity. That's how you get your foot in the door to experiencing the glory and the magnificence of the limitless divine expression. Your story about divinity can be anything. I say this last week, people were laughing because I was saying you could pray to Sonic if you want. You can pray to the spaghetti monster. Your something higher can be anything. How you conceptualize of something higher doesn't matter. It doesn't make it less or more real. It is your story that you are configuring. It's like a puzzle, it's like a key of how you are specifically relating to the divine so that the divine can come in and create a higher vibrational reality for you right now in this moment. It doesn't even have to be true forever or to everyone. That's not the point. The point is that you are being nourished. You are connecting to the highest potential reality through your complex belief, which is a story. But your story is your unique connection to the divine. And as you believe and cultivate that story, you open up your heart and your mind to the highest possible vibration. So the difference between God and the spirit of uni and your higher self is only a matter of story. The spirit of uni is that which connects all dimensions. to me, that seems logical. It seems like that has to exist. God, to me, is the collection of all things, the collection of all personality, the collection of all experience across all time, experienced as once. Ultimate reality is what I think of as God. That's just a story. It's a story that benefits me because I like to think that I'm contributing to this larger whole. And the higher self is, for me, an angelic aspect of myself, which knows everything, which is all loving, which sees the higher reality, and which knows me implicitly, and which has incarnated as me specifically. This specificity of the higher self is what gives it its power. The fact that you yourself have a spark inside of you that is absolutely, inherently, and utterly divine allows you to connect energetically with that divinity because you have a logical, emotional connection to that specific aspect of divinity. And as you allow for that specific divinity which you relate to most to come into your life and to guide your actions and to guide your thoughts and to guide your relationships and to teach you the 5-dimensional higher vibrational understanding of non-attachment and enlightenment, you are actually connecting more deeply and more clearly with the highest possible divinity. There's 3 steps that should be taken when you're conceptualizing of your higher self. They are to conceptualize, communicate, and then integrate. So the first step is to conceptualize. What does it mean to conceptualize of the higher self? That means just imagining it. And you don't have to beat yourself up like, oh, the way that I see my higher self is as, you could be like as a Bratz doll, like angel who just like knows everything or like has an attitude. Like I know a lot of people who like when they talk to their higher power, they say like, hey bitch, it's a friendly, intimate relationship. And that's what it should be. Because the more intimacy you can get with divinity, the more you can actually integrate that higher vibrational energy into your body. So what is your higher self? A lot of people find a lot of comfort imagining their higher self as an angelic self or imagining the higher self as a parent self. For me, I imagine my higher self as sometimes a parent. I used to do that more, and now that I feel more matched to their energy. So I now actually I now have a romantic and intimate and even sexual relationship with my higher self in my mind. And the way that I conceptualize of my higher self is as an all-knowing, intelligent, glorious entity that I listen to, that I respect, that I honor, and I make room in my life for their wisdom. So however you conceptualize, you can have a sexual relationship with your higher self, you can have a parent-child relationship with your higher self, you can have a friendship with your higher self, you can imagine anything in the world that your higher self is. The more personal it is to you, the more you're going to be benefiting from this relationship. So the first step is to conceptualize of it. Spend time in meditation. Draw your higher self. Paint your higher self. Write a story about your higher self. Free write about your higher self. What does your higher self look like? What do they feel like when you talk to them? What kind of advice do they give you? You can do higher self meditations that will introduce you to your higher self. You have to sit and meditate and imagine your higher self, because as you imagine your higher self and you fill in all the details of what they're like and who they are, that is the key of the specific connectivity of divinity. You're creating a very specific bridge to the divine that's going to allow the divine to flow through you. So conceptualize of your higher self. Then the next step is to communicate with your higher self. Again, in meditation or in free writing, what does your higher self have to say to you? When you have a question about your life, what does your higher self say? When you have a difficult decision to make, what does your higher self say? When you're going through a difficult time, what does your higher self say? When you're trying to overcome anxiety, what does your higher self say? now that you've conceptualized of your higher self, and you've got a good story and a good framework for who they are and what they look like, then you can open up the conversation channel and you can say, okay, now that I know who they are, I see them as an angel, I've painted them, I've drawn them, I've come up with a whole story about who they are and how they came to be me on earth, then the channel of communication is available. And as you open the channel of communication to your higher self, you can then infuse your consciousness with higher vibrational energy. The conceptualization of the higher self has created a channel to divinity that is now being used through communication to allow the highest vibrational energy to flow into your life. This is all logic. Okay, this is watertight logic, and it is here to benefit your life. It is here to make your day-to-day reality brighter, easier, more fun, and full of ease. I teach this because I've done it and it works. I've seen other people do it and it works. And it also aligns with so many other ideologies. It's just pure logic. After you learn how to communicate with your higher self, then you get to learn how to integrate your higher self. Communication is this idea that there is something outside of yourself that you're reaching to and you're having a conversation. You're saying, oh, I'm appealing to my higher self to learn. What does my higher self have to say about this? What does my higher self have to say about that? And then you can take that energy in, and that's a slower process. That's a more externalized process, even though it's internal because it's in your mind, than the internal process of integration. Once you've got an amazing conception of your higher self, you've communicated with your higher self for a long time, and you've got a really good understanding of what type of advice they might want to be telling you and giving you, then you can start integrating your higher self into your body. Earlier I said that I make space for my higher self. I step aside for my higher self to lead my life. And occasionally my trauma from my childhood gets triggered and I forget and I lose that connection with divinity, and I get trapped in a trauma cycle, and I forget the higher dimensional teachings. And that's okay, because I get to then slowly find my way back. And as I'm in that darker shadow triggered space of emotionality, of being lost in my emotions and confused about life, and feeling like I can't trust God, and feeling like I can't trust this reality, and feeling betrayed and abandoned and whatever other feelings I'm feeling, then as I slowly find my footing back to my near constant joy, I then appeal to my higher self, and I appeal to my higher self, and I say, and I pray, and I talk to something higher, and I say, help me, because I am hurting and I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm uncomfortable. And then as I integrate and communicate with my higher self, then it raises the vibration again to the point that I am holding space for a more beneficial reality for myself. And as I integrate that information, I learn over and over and over and over and over and over and over again that I can trust the universe, and that I'm safe, and that I'm loved, and that the world is a good place to be. And that cycle, hey, it's dramatic, it's overwhelming, but it's so much better than staying in that negative place. It's so much better than always seeing the world as a negative, detrimental place. And as I've gone through this process, this is my personal experience, as I've gone through this process, I've actually grounded myself more and more and more in this sacred divine reality where I feel happier, safer, and like I can trust the universe, and like I'm protected, and like I'm loved. The integration of the higher self is a personal experience. And your story about who your higher self is, your story, your narrative about who you are in this world, can be very hard to overcome. My ego, personally, is a very strong ego. My ego thinks that because I was, put into difficult situations as a child, and I had to think my way out of them, and I had to do everything I could to protect myself, that everything is up to me, that I don't have anybody else looking out for me. And so my ego was created in that way to think that I have the answers, that I know how to take care of myself and that nobody can help me. Not God, not anybody. I'm all on my own. So to overcome that ego has been a very difficult process, and integrating the higher self means to balance, overcome, and kill the ego. I used to be against the words kill the ego, but this year I actually did have to starve out my ego to the point that it died. And I grieved that process. And I asked my higher self, I said, I don't want to kill this person. I'm not a murderer. I'm a pacifist. And my higher self said, there's a time for everything to die, you know, and you're not killing it. You're just starving it out. You're just not letting it live in your reality anymore. And it's a difficult thing, you know, because it's like we're so attached to this person who has protected us. Our egos do protect us, or they do their best job they can to protect us. But as we let go and we look at reality and we see that there is no enemy, and we integrate the fact that the truth of reality is harmony, and we do this purely from a logical place, we actually become beings of peace. Beings of near constant joy, beings of radical self-love. And the way that we accomplish this is just by allowing more and more and more space in our lives, in our consciousness, in our souls, for our higher selves to come in and lead our lives and to guide our lives. Integrating your higher self is one of the most logical, beneficial tips, life hacks that I can give you. The idea that you are here on purpose, that you have an eternal soul that is the most glorious, possible, beautiful, angelic, wise, powerful, divine energy that has chosen to incarnate as you specifically, can create a much deeper connection with your own personal joy and a much deeper connection with your own divinity. So this week for uni practice, if you have your uni planners, there's a section for what to do. And I would say this week, write out a description of your higher self, or free write a connection, a communication between you and your higher self, and get that energy flowing. Start imagining, conceptualizing of your higher self, and then practice communicating with your higher self. And if you're new to this journey, integrating your higher self is a big thing to ask you to do in 1 week. But maybe just imagine, what would your life be like if your higher self was in your body at all times? What would your fights look like if you have fights with people? I used to have a lot of fights with people. I don't have fights with people anymore, which is amazing. I didn't think I couldn't have fights with people, because I was like, it's not my fault I'm fighting with people. It's everyone else's fault. But now that my higher self is in my body almost all the time, I don't have fights with people. Sometimes I get frustrated and I lose track of my higher self. But that's when I set boundaries. So what would it look like? Would you stop fighting with people? Would you have more comfort? Would you have more abundance? Like, not just abundance, but like feelings of security is what I mean when I say abundance. And just maybe write out or paint a picture or think about what would your future look like? What would your life look like if you were successfully integrating your higher self into every moment of every day? What would that look like? And just believing that that's possible opens up this channel of divinity to flow into. Let's do a closing prayer, and then we'll get to those donations for the raffle. I will just announce the raffle one more time. Oh my God. We're all good. I just got wax all over myself. We just started our raffle, so these are our tickets so far. If you want to contribute to the raffle, check out. I'll post a link. There's a link on the website. There's lots of cool prizes. We're trying to get our church. I'm gonna have to look up how to get wax out of clothes. Out of polyester. What a nightmare. What a nightmare. These are the trials and tribulations of being a cult leader. Spirit of Uni, we call you here today to bless each and every person. We are calling you to bless each and every person right now. Right now, whenever they watch this. Uni bless.